Do not adjust your set. We started on time. Sing it, Jimmy.
I can tell you one time, don't want it with us. I can tell you one time, that we'll fuck you up. I can tell you one time, go grab your guns. I'll tell you one time, this thing belongs to Washington. Wow!
I never get over that. And yes, that is all that's left after the fighting. Us, the War Room. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the War Room. This is day 233, if I'm not mistaken, which means we are getting perilously close to 3/4 of a year of this bullshit. I mean, not the show, I mean the actual conflict. But some of you may think maybe the show too. Like, good God, how long can he keep doing this? Anyway, me just saying that made me completely forget how I was going to do the intro. So, sorry. Oh, I know what I was going to do. It was going to start with a joke because I see that the finest of apes is here. So what I thought I would do is I would promise you now that I will not make any references to the Grim Reapers. So hello, valued viewers. Kidding, kidding, just kidding. Anyway. Tonight's show, I gotta tell you, sometimes myself, and my panelists, I am very impressed with the panelists I have, and sometimes my own capability, because right up until noon today, I had no idea what today's show was going to be about. And I had paid attention to the news. It's just I didn't know how I was going to carry on this theme, because this new format's quite interesting. So anyway, all right, I'm about to ban one of my panelists, but anyway. Tonight's theme is called Tit for Tat. And I think if you saw the description in the video, then you know, but I'll just go ahead and read it out to you. A series of attacks and retaliations as the EU and other allies pledge to continue support for Ukraine's defense. Winter is coming, as European nations begin the unenviable task of asking its peoples to save energy, even blacking out parts of cities and major monuments in an effort to ration energy, which will be needed to heat homes in the coming months. More pain and suffering is inevitable, all thanks to the demented wishes of a single dictator. The question is, why did the world allow it? And how much longer do we think it'll continue to go on before things take a much more irreversible and possible nuclear twist? These are the questions and the stories that we will try to present to you to answer these questions. But my two panelists are being complete douchebags, so tonight's episode is brought to you by Summer's Eve Feminine Products. Because they're both drinking it with their dinner as we speak. Anyway, as for the electricity rationing thing, that would be the thumbnail that you see to the right of the panel here. That is the Eiffel Tower blacked out in an effort to conserve energy. Just saying. Winter's coming. Anyway, let me bring in my rude panelists that are being total douchebags. I am joking, by the way. So let's start with Scott P79 and Mikhail Naitstraiksky. Good
Hi,
evening to
Sean.
both of you.
Yep. Good evening. We were just ribbing you, dude.
I
We're not
know.
being silly.
It's
We're just
it's
having
cool,
fun out in
dude.
the chat.
We're having fun. I get it. It's fine. I'm not gonna go all
Band happy.
no. I was gonna say the person's name, but I'm not gonna go all potentially Oklahoma red flag. So anyway, and then Scott just vanishes. Good job, bro. There he is.
There he is.
There he is. Okay, let me
Yeah,
drag this back down
yeah.
just a. Oops.
Okay.
Don't.
Well, we
know
got to
which
drag
one's
the
straight.
intro out for at least another 30 minutes. Right?
No. I can't do that. We have way too much stuff to go through tonight.
And I even brought some stuff before the show too. So
Yes, you did, and I'm
It's
pretty sure it's going to overlap, which is
it
good.
will overlap, which is good. But we'll go over it when we get there.
If and when we can get there, yeah. So, before we go into all the stories, because
Good
I
luck,
promised I was
Tommy.
going to keep the
Good luck.
intro less than 30 minutes, did
Uh-huh.
anything exciting happen to either one of you this week? I think the answer is probably yes to both of you, but go ahead and share with the good people anything that happened to you this week.
Okay, I'll go first.
Hmm.
For those that don't know, Saturday, this last week, I bought an RPK.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And then,
But is it
you know,
really an RPK?
don't give me that.
No.
Don't give me
I like the uniqueness of it. I want you to tell the people what you got because I think it's cool.
It's an NHM 91 RPK. So
There you
yes,
go.
it's an RPK, but it's a communist country made.
It's a Norinco.
Mhm.
Well done.
Anyway, then I went to the gun shop. What was it, Monday or Tuesday?
Yeah.
And I found an M1 carbine that was bubbaed for $400.
Jeez.
So I got that. I've already ordered all the parts I need. I've even talked to Mark Novak about what I can do to it. He said, like, if you get any reproduction parts, don't worry about it because honestly, some of the prices on original parts aren't worth it.
Yeah.
So I got some parts for it. So I'm gonna take it back from Bubba because the scope was nice. It was nice and zeroed, and it was pretty well. But I don't think I'm gonna use it.
Are you going back to irons?
Going back to irons.
Maybe I'll take that scope off your hands for you.
Yeah, if you got an M1 carbine, go for it.
Well, I mean, it's not made for that, right? It was just something that they added to it.
Well, I don't know if that scope was made for it. It's something they added to it, definitely. But they used like a Picatinny rail style mount for it.
Right.
So.
I was just talking about the tube itself. Like I've got mounts for days. I did an estate clear out, and I have like 2 drawers full of Redfield mounts for all sorts of things. I got a couple of Timney triggers too. One for a 1903. So if you ever get your hands on one, you're welcome to it because I'm not going to use it.
Yeah.
New in box, dated 1956, by the way.
The 1903 is the next on my list, and I don't mind if I get a what you call it, a butchered one.
Oh, buy my
sporterized.
43 then. I don't want it.
I'll take a sporterized one.
Buy
we'll
my
talk-
43. I don't want it.
We'll talk later, okay?
Because like all the hardware's there. It's just if you want the original barrel, you're going to have to find one because I got a Criterion, and you have to find a stock. But I mean, all the mechanical parts are original.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
and those two things I can find easy because
exactly.
me.
I got a guy
like,
for barrels. I got a guy. He's got like $70, brand new, unissued,
I know a guy.
still in the mummy wrap.
I may take that up, but I also know a guy. And
Yeah,
you know
you know a guy.
I know a guy. So because he wouldn't call me and talk to me if he didn't like me
Right. By name.
by name either.
Calls you
Yeah.
Mikey.
Well, no, he calls me Mike.
I'm going to leave a comment in one of his videos to do that. Tell him because I know it'll make your eye twitch. on a video, no less.
Don't do it.
Oh yeah, like when I send you
No.
my Enfield, I'm gonna leave a letter in it and like stick it behind the butt plate or stick it in the breech so when he opens it up he'll see it and it'll say, "Remember to call Night Strike Mikey on camera." Okay, I can do that. Anyway, so you are definitely not the only person who acquired something. Scott, you picked up something rather interesting this week too.
Yeah, Scott got some
Yeah.
cool stuff.
Yes, I did.
Share with the
Yeah.
lovely people what you got.
Well, the first one I got was a Sig P226 and 40
It's nice.
cal.
It's a nice one too. Really nice.
Yeah, police trade-in. Shoots really nice actually for a 40 cal.
Hmm.
From what I saw from
But-
the pictures, it looked like somebody just put it in a holster and put it in their desk.
No, somebody shot the shit out of it because of the barrel wear.
Okay.
Oh
so-
yeah,
Well,
you
I
know how
couldn't see that
Sigs-
from the pictures.
you know how Sigs typically get that wear pattern on the top that's like a crescent moon shape and it moves down the barrel.
Yeah.
It has that on the top and the bottom.
Ooh. It
I've
has-
never seen it on the bottom.
She got put to work.
It's been put to work.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's actually
Well-
got a broken in trigger.
At that point, you could just swap the barrel with the new barrel, and you'd be good.
Yeah, I could, but I just polished the rest of the bluing off the hood of the barrel, so I polished it up nice and shiny, so it looks nice.
That
I've
wasn't-
got
Go ahead.
I've got a Gray Guns trigger coming for it, flat trigger,
Ooh. Nice.
and I already do have the SRT kit,
Good.
so it's gonna have a pretty sweet trigger. And Amazon delivered me the wrong G10 grip today.
But
Yeah, I heard
they did you solid.
Yes, they did.
We're sending you a
They
new
don't
one,
even.
and we don't
We're
even
sending
want the
you
old one.
replacements, and they don't even want me to send the new old ones back.
It's pretty cool.
So I can recoup my money on my Gray Guns trigger by selling those ones.
That
Because those
wasn't-
ones don't fit any of my guns.
That wasn't the only thing you got this week, though, was it?
No! I got something out of layaway hell.
Yes.
Russian shotgun.
That looks like a
A Russian Vepr shotgun.
yes.
that better?
So it's a RPK-based shotgun.
What? I thought it was just AK based. It's that
No.
long?
It's both. It's both.
It's a bulged trunnion.
But I mean, okay, I got you. The receiver, okay. Because I mean, like
the
lengthwise,
receiver and
it's like
trunnion.
AKM size, right?
It's an 18-inch barrel gun.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whew.
I'm going to probably end up changing the grip on it because I hate freaking finger grooves.
Yep.
Especially these ones. They're not terrible, but I just don't like them. I got to do something about the trigger guard itself because this trigger guard has one sharp-ass edge on the outside.
I'm
Gotta
pretty
have to take a
indifferent to
file to
finger grooves. Like I'm okay with either or for some reason. But
Well,
if,
these ones I don't. These ones aren't bad because they're nice and wide.
yeah,
I just don't like finger grooves.
because like
I'll-
the Hogue AK grips feel amazing. I put one on
I'll
a
probably-
KP9.
Pick up one of the Tango Downs.
Yeah, those are good too.
I like the Tango Downs.
That I only put the Hogue on the KP9, but I mean, like if I wanted to modify my other AKs, I would have totally used those again. Like they feel so good because they're so chunky. Because
Yeah.
if you have long fingers, it's kind of like a must. But should
And
I tell
found the
them?
perfect gun to put my limited edition Vickers AK sling on.
Nice. So I've been withholding this, but should I tell them what I bought?
Go ahead.
Well, you can.
I could. I mean, it's gonna. Well, okay. So this is a really
Eat mac and
really
cheese for it.
bad episode of Keeping Up with the Poneses because these guys both bought 2 guns this week, and I won't be able to buy guns for the next 6 years. Probably. Most likely. So I have been, these guys know, and a lot of people who hear me in the lobby throughout the week, which remember, if you're watching this or you're listening in, there's links to my Discord in the description. You guys are more than welcome to join in. We're in there every day. We do this thing called the Lobby for Working Stiffs when we're all doing our 9 to 5s. So like if you see a bunch of people in the lobby, that's us. Like we're hanging out all day. But most of these guys know that. Um, a lot of these guys knew when I owned my BMW, and then once I got out of those, I bought a Fiat 500, and I took a ribbing for it. But the car was reliable, and it was cheap to drive, so it saved me a lot of money in that time of my life. And then when I had paid that off, I decided to indulge and splurge a little bit and get something kind of nice, right? So I bought my T-Bird because my dad had one. He built his in 1955, and he always told me about it. So I saw a retro one and I bought it. So I drove that for the last 4 years, and when when the end of the Trump presidency hit, I started making contingency plans for I need to have a vehicle that can do things other than pick up chicks. Like they need to be able to go through things or over things or, traverse things. So I'd been talking about an SUV of some sort. I was really big into the Toyota FJ Cruisers, but the newest one I can get in the United States is 2014, which is no bueno because a lot of
Too
those,
old.
yeah, too old with too many miles or too abused, or if they were really low miles, way overpriced for a used vehicle. I mean, these things were still selling for, I think it was like $40,000, and they still had like 90,000 miles on them. And I
Because
thought,
somebody still has payments on them.
yeah, and I thought, I really like the look of them, but I can't buy that as a daily driver because I couldn't rely on it, you know? Not in clear conscience. And on top of that, it has two Achilles heels. One, uh, the 4-liter gas engine they come with, while it's a good engine, it's incredibly inefficient. Like you're talking 12, 13 miles to a gallon. Because I mean the thing is shaped like a barn, first of all, and it's a little engine pushing a very heavy vehicle. So it's not efficient. And I always said that the reason that those things didn't sell by the millions is because they didn't put a diesel engine in them. So like I know these guys are sick of me talking about it, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna buy a 4-wheel drive and it's gonna have a diesel. And for the longest time, I was thinking about a 3/4 ton or a 1-ton Ram with a Cummins engine because when I was a teenager, I was converting Jeeps with 12-valve Cummins engines, and they're bulletproof. So I wanted one of those, and I kept checking the market throughout the last 3 years. I mean, these guys will tell you, I drove them crazy with it. For the last 3 years, I kept looking at different trucks and vehicles and SUVs and whatever. And then the Gladiator came out, and I was all hashtag not my Gladiator because it's a scrambler. It's trans scramblerism because it's actually more like a CJ8, and it pissed me off. Uh, but
And
they
it doesn't
offered
come
it.
with a diesel.
But they do. The first year they didn't, but then this year they did. The same pasta diesel, but they're $58,000 with that engine. I was like, kiss my ass. First of all, it ain't a Gladiator. Second of all, I ain't paying 58 grand. You can kiss my ass, right? So there was that.
Well, so are the Colorados with the diesel.
Yes. So then that's that. Yeah. Thanks for leading me there because I was thinking, okay, well maybe I'll consider a Colorado or the Canyon GMC equivalent with the 2.8 liter. I think it is 2.8 liter Duramax 4-cylinder turbo. Squib Load, most of you know who that is. He owns one. And, okay, I guess, pause. Sidebar. Bjorn, that's awesome. I had a 68 SS. So that's cool. So I was looking at Colorados, and like you said, the diesel ones are quite expensive. And the CPO market, they're still holding their value incredibly well. Like more than I'm willing to pay for a used vehicle, right? So then I thought, okay, how about the Ford F-150 4-wheel drive with the 6-cylinder Power Stroke? Well, come to find out, they discontinued that engine last year, so I couldn't really get a new one, and even the used ones were rare, and they were stupidly expensive. Like F-150 Limited and Platinum cost 60 grand, and I thought, not feeling it. So I thought, let me back up a couple of years, maybe 2015 to 2019 Ford F-250 Power Stroke with the 6.7, which I know runs on biodiesel if you want it to. great trucks. The resale value is lower than the other two manufacturers because they make so many of them. The market's saturated with Super Duties that you can actually pick up a decent one for like 28 to 35,000. The problem is, if you ever have to work on a Power Stroke, you have to pull the cab off the frame. That's no bueno when you work in your driveway. So that immediately got that out of my system. So then it boiled down to 3/4 ton Cummins or half ton Ram with the 3.0 liter Eco Diesel, which I call the pasta diesel because it's a Italian made 3-liter V6 turbo diesel.
60 minutes, Sean.
What? It's only 20 minutes, dude. Anyway, long story short, I kept looking for them. They kept being priced somewhere between $38,000 to $50,000, and I'm like, "There's no way I'm going to be able to afford one." And then 2 weeks ago, I jumped on, I think it was my local Craigslist of all places, and I found one for $21,000, and I thought, "There's something wrong with that." So I called the dealer. I talked to him, and he was like, "No, we bought out this so and so dealership. We bought out their whole inventory because they don't keep anything older than 5 years on the lot." So I said, "Okay, I want to buy it." And he's like, "You don't even want to test drive it?" I'm like, "Nope, I'll buy it." And he says, "Okay, well, let's start the credit on it." So he ran it, and he goes, "Oh, they won't finance that one because it had 121,000 miles." And they were like, "It's over 100 and I think their cutoff was 120 or something like that. It was stupid." And they're like, "Well, they won't finance it." This one was already lifted with big ass tires, and I was like, "Damn, right?" It was maroon. So I'm like, "Well, that kind of sucks." And he goes, "Well, maybe not. I have another one. It's a year newer, and it has 100,000 miles like 105." And I said, "Okay, what do you want for that one?" And he's like, "Let me get the listing. I'll PM it to you because we haven't made it go active yet." And I looked, and it was 24,000. And I thought, huh. But the best part is it had every single stupid option that I wanted, that I told Scott and Mike here, to the point of projectile vomit. I was like, "Oh, it's got to have the toolboxes built in the bed, and it's got to have that 9-inch touchscreen. It's got to have, big ass tire. It's got to I had all these
Blah,
stupid
blah,
requirements."
blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
I bought it. Long story short, I bought it. It's outside.
And now you're gonna be poor for the next 6 years.
So now I'm going to be poor for the next 6 years
You
because
need sponsored by Kraft Mac and Cheese or Maruchan.
it's going to be Kraft Mac and Cheese. So yeah, because it's the official food of NASCAR. Anyway, no, I bought it, and when I bought it, I tried to make the guy not sell it to me. Like I tried to make it as difficult as possible. So I was like, listen, I have no trade in. I'm keeping the car I got now. I don't want to pay you $0 down. And I was like, "Here's my credit information." And I thought he was going to tell me I can't do that. So he started typing back at me, and I was already typing out the words, "Well, thank you for your," "What the fuck did you just say?" And he goes, "Your credit's great." That's exactly the way I wrote that. And he was like, "Your credit's fine. You can come pick it up anytime you want." So I bought it. Like I told him, no money down, no trade in. I want an extended warranty that covers it for 50,000 miles and gap coverage. And the guy was like, "Okay, just I have to add that to the price of the truck." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." I was like, "Trust me, I know. I did this with my Chrysler 300. So turns out my as financed is like 30,000. After interest, it's fucking close to 40,000. So whatever. But I got it, and after I picked it up, that's when I started to realize a couple of things. This has air suspension, which I think is really wicked. And it's got almost 35-inch tires on it already. So like, I'm happy with it the way it is.
I like how finance thinks.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. The only thing I'm doing to this thing is bumpers, steps, LED lights, maybe an overhead light
Look
bar.
what he said.
Huh.
It's like, you don't have to take off the cab if you're creative with the Sawzall.
Well, yeah, but then I'd have a footwell like Fred Flintstone just to get to the back two cylinders. Anyway, point is it's got everything I want, nothing I don't. The only thing that yes, you can. There's a channel called Gun Picks.
Yep.
The only thing it didn't have was heated air-conditioned seats because it has cloth seats, which I'm okay with because leather seats in the winter suck, and leather seats when they're a couple of years old suck even worse because they get all hard. So,
Giggity.
not feeling bad
Oh, I
about that.
thought you were going to go with the whole, in the summertime, it feels like you're sitting on fire.
Nah, because I mean, I tint the windows anyway.
Liquid,
But
liquid
somebody
hot
already did that to
plasma.
this truck, so I didn't have to do that either, which is great. And what else? Oh yeah, and it doesn't have a power seat on the passenger side, but I don't sit in that seat, so I don't give a shit. My seat's powered. Apparently, the Lone Star Edition Rams are, um, they have all the luxury options for the driver, and they didn't add like the over gaudy luxury items like the Laramies have, which is what I wanted. I wanted a Laramie, but they're way too expensive. So I got my truck. It's the color I wanted, white. It's going to get a bunch of black cow spots all over it, finals. It's going to have a cowbell on the back bumper and the word moo on the license plate because I named her Maggie, which is Maggie Moo, which was an ice cream parlor that I saw growing up, and I thought it was a really cool name. So I'm going to do that so people can point and laugh at it because if I have a sense of humor.
No, they're going to say, who's that gay guy driving that ugly truck?
No, because it's gonna have cow spots, and what's great is every time I pull up behind somebody, they get the hell out of your way, because law of tonnage.
Ooh, you know what you need to do?
What?
You need to modify the horn to moo.
If such a thing exists, I will look for it. Otherwise, it's probably gonna get the Dukes of Hazzard horns, because Southern, and we're supposedly racist, so whatever. Fuck it. Anyway, yeah. So I got a truck. I got the truck that I wanted. 8-speed, 4-wheel drive, fucking lockers. It's got lockers. It's got everything. Like, I don't have to do shit. It's great. No, I love that. He says I just have to duct tape a stop sign over the hole. Nah, dude, I have class. I'll just make a whole floor out of old license plates like everyone else does. Okay, so now that we've wasted 27 minutes of your time and I did my stupid intro, and now you know I can't buy guns for the next 6 years, let's go ahead and get started. So,
Oh, Sean, I put a link in the side chat for you.
yeah. What is it?
Moo.
All right. Oh, you found one. Okay. Damn it. Let me hang on, because I gotta copy the link and paste it later. Because if I don't, then I'll fuck up the stream.
I'll just PM it to you.
It's okay. I got it. Cow moose. Oh hell yeah. Okay. Sweet. Fantastic. All right. Thanks for that. I will have that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started because, like I said, we got a lot to cover. Thankfully, a lot of the stories are short stories, but there's just a bunch of them, so we're going to get through them as quickly as possible. We're going to try to get through the theme of the day. Bjorn, when I get off air, I'll be able to check your pictures, and we'll leave commentary because we love that kind of stuff. We do it, and we like when you guys do it too. All right, so the first story we have today starts on October 8th, which would have been day 227, last Saturday. For those of you who watched last episode, we can buy me one of those cans that make the moo sound. I should just stick like a ton of them in the tires so as they roll, it'll just be like... Anyway, the last story I gave to you guys on the last week's episode was it just hit my feed before we went off air, and it was about Russia shelling and missiling the town of Kherson. In retaliation for that attack, the following day, this story came out. So this is that tit for tat thing for the theme. Here's a photo for you. Yeah. So anyway, a truck exploded in the middle of a bridge connecting Crimea and Russia Saturday, killing 3 people, Russian officials had confirmed. The explosion ignited 7 fuel tanks of a train also traveling on the Kerch Bridge. 2 of the victims, a man and a woman, had been pulled from the water below. The 3 victims were presumably passengers in the car next to the truck that exploded. So what they're implying is, we've all seen the video. At first, I thought it was a Neptune missile that struck the bridge. Later on, we watched a guy who used to go by the name of Jive Turkey. He does a lot of naval news. He had a theory that it was a barge that had traveled underneath and exploded from below. Now we're getting a report that says that it was a truck bomb. So,
No, Russia's always said it was a truck bomb.
right. So it's like one person says
Wait,
one thing, the other person says another thing, the Ukrainians say one thing, the Russians say one thing, and I'm pretty sure the truth is somewhere in the middle of all of that.
our guy says it was a barge that had been loaded with high explosives.
Yeah, that's what Jive Turkey was coming up with. He was like, there was a barge. And the debris that fell after the explosion would sort of support that idea, I think. The missile theories also, it would do that too. But yeah, the barge thing, that makes a bit of sense to me. Sure. So anyway, let's see. Authorities suspended travel on the bridge, according to Russia's RIA state news agency. Ukrainian media outlets reported an explosion was heard around 6 a.m. local time. Photos of the road and rail bridge on social media show part of the bridge was destroyed and plunged into the water below. Some of the videos show a large blaze and a column of black smoke, which was the train cars. Russian officials say the truck was owned by a resident of the Krasnodar region in southern Russia, and that they are searching the owner's residence and tracking the truck's route. Now, that's important. That means Russia can't blame Ukraine for this, because the truck was from Russia and it was registered to somebody in Russia. So if they really say it's a truck, they're basically admitting that it was an inside job.
Yep.
Okay, good. I'm glad we sort of agree on that. The agency added the shipping arches are not damaged, meaning ships can still pass under it, I guess. The reports of the fire occurred hours after Russia shelled the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv, destroying several buildings and sending towering plumes into the smoke into the sky. I think it was Kharkiv, not Kherson. That was my mistake. Authorities did not indicate any other casualties. The Kerch Bridge was built after Russia annexed the Crimean Peninsula back in 2014. It was officially opened in 2018 to connect Crimea to mainland Russia. So that's our first story. Now we move on to a new hiring, I guess is a good way to put it. I don't know. Mike likes to do the stories about how many Russian officers get taken out, but there's a story about a Russian officer being injected in. So they just keep playing the shell game.
That's different. Injected in instead of,
Yes, instead of being taken out. Exactly. But I mean, the thing is like they've been playing this general shell game for quite a while now, because I guess it's sort of like I'm trying to remember the movie. Oh, Patton. It's like if you can't conquer this objective in 2 hours, then you're fired. And if you can't do it, I'll find someone else and I'll fire you too. That whole thing. That's kind of what Russia's doing right now. So anyway, here's the guy. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu has appointed a new commander to the armed forces in Ukraine as Moscow looks to turn around its dwindling fortunes. General of the Army Sergei Surovikin will take over as commander of the joint group of Russian forces in the Ukraine effective immediately, drawing on experience from the Second Chechen War and campaigns in Syria and Tajikistan. This came from, Rossiyskaya Gazeta, so the Russian Gazette. Surovikin previously held command of the Southern Group in June and commander-in-chief of the Russian Aerospace Forces back in 2017. His Chechen War experience, where he led the 42nd Guards Motor Rifle Division, will draw scrutiny as a campaign rife with accusation of war crimes and human rights violations and marked by its brutality. Russian troops back in 2004 raided a school in the rural community of Beslan after a 3-day standoff with Chechen militants, with 330 of the 1,100 hostages, mostly children, were killed. And human rights organizations claim Moscow's warplanes in Syria deliberately targeted civilians and rescue workers during its campaign to support Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. This also happened under this guy's command. The Ukraine invasion has already provoked similar accusations of war crimes, with 16,000 investigations opened by June alone. Ukrainian forces discovered mass graves in the cities of Bucha and Izium after reclaiming them from Russian forces, with evidence suggesting mass executions. Another incident involved Russian forces bombing a theater in Mariupol that had clearly laid out a plea to let it stand as children were inside. That was the theater bombing. Every day we see an increase in investigations. This came from Ukraine's Prosecutor General Irina Venediktova. We are talking about people who didn't just come as military combatants, but also came to rape and kill civilians, loot, humiliate, and so on. Estonia, in April, accused Russia of genocide and other war crimes and urged the international community to open an investigation into Russia's military actions in Ukraine. Estonia's ambassador to Ukraine, Mariana Betsa, called the Estonian parliament vote to recognize the Russian campaign as genocide, a truly historic decision, and that Russia must bear full responsibility for its horrible crimes. Estonia's foreign minister, Urmas Reinsalu, in September said that the world needs to see in the bench of the accused persons, Putin, together with all of his accomplices, and face a tribunal for all of his genocide. So Estonia is getting very vocal these days.
Well, remember, they and Lithuania and what's the other one up there? It's Estonia, Lithuania,
Latvia.
Latvia, yeah. They all are like anti-Soviet. They're to the point of anti-Russian these days because it was the Russians that led the Soviet Union.
Yeah, and leaving the Eastern Bloc was like the greatest thing they could have ever done.
I mean, they're happy being part of NATO to the point that they've tore down all of their Soviet monuments. All three of those countries. They did it unilaterally.
Is that what Democrats did on the west coast of the United States?
No, there's still a Lenin statue that needs to be torn down.
Oh, you're right. The bust. You're correct.
Mm.
Before I go on to the next story, I want to point out something. I did update the scroller, and I have it on good authority that the soldier KIA statistics are actually quite accurate, because now that statistic was not just from the Kyiv Independent. It was corroborated by the UK Defense Ministry and our very own CIA. That's kind of encouraging, right? Here's the other really cool thing. They sunk another ship! It's 16 now!
All right!
Yeah, and if you see if you look at the numbers today compared to last episode, there have been some monumental gains. Like the number of cruise missiles taken down, the number of planes taken down, the number of jets taken down. That they had a busy week.
Well, did you see the video of the soldiers in the field using a man pad to take out a cruise missile?
Yeah.
You're going to make me break my thing about not talking about Grim Reapers today. But yes, I did. And the guy's reaction was priceless when it hit.
You both made me watch the video.
It was great. Anyway.
And it's real.
Yeah, and it's real. Like, first they were like, is it even feasible? The answer was yes. Did it work? The answer to that was absolutely yes. I mean, that guy was so happy. Yeah. I can't repeat on air the translated version of what he said, because,
I'm pretty sure it started with Suka.
Way more than that, but yes, that was in there too. Yeah.
Well, I said started, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let me move on. We're on Sunday, October 9th, day 228. So we're moving along. Let's see. This is KB2, so it's going to be another picture of the Kerch Bridge. Here you go.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Sunday accused Ukraine of committing terrorism after a truck exploded in the middle of the bridge connecting Crimea and Russia Saturday, killing 3 people. Now remember, just the day before, they said it was a Russian truck. Now they're saying the Ukrainians did it. The explosion ignited 7 fuel tanks of a train also traveling on the Kerch Bridge. 2 of the victims, a man and a woman, were pulled from the water below. Okay, so that's the overlap. There's no doubt that it was a terrorist act directed at the destruction of critically important civilian infrastructure of the Russian Federation, Putin says during a meeting with the chairman of Russia's investigative committee, Alexander Bastrykin. And the authors, perpetrators, and those who ordered it are the Special Services of Ukraine. Bastrykin said Ukrainian special services and citizens of Russia and other countries took part in the attack. He said a criminal investigation has been launched into an attack of terror. Into an act of terror. The bridge, which Putin personally opened in May 2018 by driving a truck across it as a symbol of Moscow's claims on Crimea, holds important strategic value to Russia in its faltering war in Ukraine. No one has claimed responsibility for damaging the 12-mile bridge, the longest in Europe. Road and rail traffic on the bridge were temporarily halted, damaging a vital supply route for the Kremlin's forces. Well, duh, that was by design. In Kyiv, presidential advisor Mykol Podolyak called Putin's terrorist accusations too cynical for even Russia. I like that. Putin accuses Ukraine of terrorism, he says? It has not even been 24 hours since Russian planes fired 12 rockets into a residential area in Zaporizhia, killing 13 people and injuring more than 50. No, there's only one state terrorist, and the whole world knows who he is.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was funny that he actually says that.
Yeah.
Russia has suffered a
Okay.
series of setbacks nearly 8 months after invading Ukraine in a campaign many thought would be short-lived. In recent weeks, Ukrainian forces have staged a counteroffensive, retaking areas in the south and east, while Moscow's decision to call up more troops has led to protests and an exodus of hundreds of thousands of Russians. Traffic over the Kerch Bridge was temporarily suspended after Saturday's blast, but both automobiles and trains were crossing again on Sunday. Russia has also restarted a car ferrying service. Crimea is a popular vacation resort for Russians, and people trying to drive to the bridge and back onto the Russian mainland encountered hours-long traffic jams on Sunday. Oh, you poor baby. Moving on. Now we're into Monday. See? Getting there. October 10th, day 229. And I've got dogs going crazy for some dumb reason.
Well, you're the one who decided you wanted 8 of them.
I only keep 3 in my room. Just the girls. Anyway. Let's see. Here we go. Russia's military launched strikes against Kyiv, Ukraine, early Monday, as well as other locations in the country. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. Russians have car ferries. Yes, but not those kind, Ellis. They're the ones that, take you from point A to point B, not the ones that make you feel fabulous. Sorry, I had to. God
No,
damn.
holy crap! Look who showed up.
Demonetized. Anyway, let me start the story over.
Jaime's out there, but he's
Well, because he's
AFK.
working.
Oh, he's working. Okay. All right.
Anyway, let me start the story over because we just got into it anyway. Russia's military launched missile strikes against Kyiv. Here we go for that tit for tat. Early Monday, as well as other locations in the country, after months of relative calm in the capital of the Eastern European nation. The strikes had targeted the center of Kyiv and left civilians dead and wounded. Rostislav Smirnov, an advisor to the Ukrainian Ministry of Internal Affairs, said preliminary information shows at least 8 people were killed and 24 injured in just one of the strikes in Kyiv. Kyiv mayor and former heavyweight champion Vitaly Klitschko said explosions were reported in the city's Shevchenko district, which is a large area in the center of the city that includes the historic old town and several government offices. Lysia Vasilenko, a member of Ukraine's parliament, shared a photo on Twitter revealing that at least one explosion happened near the main building of the Kyiv National University in the center of town. Explosions were also heard in other cities, including Lviv, Kharkiv, and Dnipro, that appeared to be the result of missile strikes. Air raid sirens sounded in every region of Ukraine except Russia's annexed area of Crimea for 4 straight hours. In Lviv, energy infrastructure was hit, Regional Governor Maxim Kozitsky said. The water supply was knocked out in Kharkiv, which was hit 3 times, according to the mayor, Ihor Terekov. The last attack on Kyiv before Monday was in June, when missiles hit an apartment building, killing 1 person and wounding 6 others. Recent fighting amid the country's war with Russia has centered on the regions just north of Crimea, which includes Zaporizhia, where 6 missiles were launched overnight Saturday from Russian-occupied areas of the region. Russian President Putin claimed Sunday that an attack damaging the large bridge linking Russia to its annexed territory of Crimea was a terrorist act from Ukrainian special services. Putin said in a meeting with the chairman of Russia's investigative committee that there is, quote, no doubt it was a terrorist attack directed at the destruction of critically important civilian infrastructure. Terrorist attack, he says. Right. Anyway, tit for tat, right?
Pretty sure an attack by a national military force against an enemy is not terrorist
No, that's
attack.
defending your country.
I was gonna say that's usually an act of war.
Right, and they're in one, clearly.
Hmm.
But again, that's tit for tat. It started in Kharkiv, then it went to the bridge, now it's going all across the country. This is just back and forth, back and forth. That's kind of the theme of today. Until we get to this story, which I know that I set the thumbnail to show basically what I'm about to tell you is a story, but here's a reminder of what it's supposed to look like, which is like the crown jewel of Paris, if you think about it, because that is stunning to look at, any way you look at it. Anyway, Paris, known for 3 centuries as the City of Lights, will look much darker this winter, with France pushing a policy of energy sobriety that will turn off the lights to the city's top shops and historical attractions. We must stop believing that people are only attracted by light. Well, right, flies are. Anyway, that came from Paris's deputy mayor Emmanuel Gregoire. Sorry, my French is rusty. He said of France's bid to save its energy consumption, according to a report in the Wall Street Journal. People are not mosquitoes. People used to parrots being lit up late into the night will have to adjust to a new reality this winter and possibly longer. With French President Emmanuel Macron calling for 10% reduction in energy consumption over the next 2 years. Paris has responded by cutting the power to its renowned shops on the Avenue de Montaigne hours early, a practice that is being followed by government-owned buildings and some of the city's most famous attractions, such as the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre. The policy comes amid Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine, which has resulted in a halt to Russian imports of natural gas to European countries that previously relied heavily on this to fill its energy needs. While France has typically been a net exporter of energy in recent years, issues plaguing many of the country's nuclear plants have caused the country to increase imports this year. So they've turned into what we were turned into by Captain Sundowner and his stupid executive orders. Imagine that. I know. Other European countries are implementing similar policies, with the Netherlands calling on residents to take shorter showers, Finland asking its people to spend less time on electronic devices, and Germany cutting the lights to many of its monuments. I'm sorry, we're going backwards. Anyway.
Well, you know what they could do is they could go back to using candles for light.
You know what they could do is they could grow a set of balls and actually take the fight to Russia and just end the shit now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Or they could
Germany could.
Greta
Germany has
Thunberg
legitimate
go fuck
reason. Their
herself.
embassy got attacked, and embassies,
Absolutely.
as we all know, embassies are
the sovereign territory of the nation that's being hosted.
Exactly. So technically, that they
Article
did
5.
An Article 5 violation, but Germany and the leader of NATO won't do anything.
100% agree. If I was the Surgeon General of the United States, I would prescribe the Chancellor of Germany a box of Grow-A-Set. That's a joke, by the way. Anyway.
And it still wouldn't help.
No, because I think it's a woman. I don't want to see a woman with balls. I'm sorry. We already have Bruce Jenner. We don't need any more. And demonetized.
Bruce Jenner doesn't have balls.
I was going to tell you, if you want to see that, just go to California.
And demonetized. Or I could just go back to Tulsa and watch a certain person's YouTube videos of him ranting and raving about people that hate him now. Her, it.
Oh, that's what happens when you're crazy.
Yes, certifiably. Anyway. But seemingly no country has been as aggressive as France, which will cut off hot water in public buildings while capping heat at 64 degrees and driving government vehicles more slowly in an effort to preserve fuel. Run diesel, you idiots. Anyway.
I believe it was the French that were, if you had too much petrol in your tank, were turning you away at the pumps.
Yes, they were checking your tanks. French
And if
residents...
you had too much
Well, the
Nope, no
trick
gas
is
for
easy.
you.
Actually, there's a trick to that. You just use a rheostat on a resistor. So, like, you pull up to the pump and you crank this knob and it makes your gas needle drop down. And then you put in like 20 gallons. Crank that shit back up. You're not supposed to know that. Life hacks. Anyway, French residents have also been encouraged to make changes at home, including guidance to only use electrical appliances such as dishwashers and washing machines outside of peak hours, unplugging computers and TVs when they're not in use, and to take shorter showers. We will publish our electricity and gas consumption every week, Prime Minister Elizabeth Bourne says. Depending on this and the weather, we will see if we have made the necessary energy savings. So let me get this straight. France is about to force all of its people to go back to living the stereotype the rest of the world has of French people saying that they stink and they don't bathe and all this other stuff in the name of saving electricity.
Well, France is going back to France of the 1930s, 40s.
Yeah.
We'll see how many riots they'll have with their people.
Yeah, you remember the last time there was a Vichy France. That didn't end so well.
Well, I was going to say, they usually roll up the guillotine when they want to raise the gas tax by like 5 cents.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if they...
This might actually make them use it.
Yeah, well, if they want to bring back Vichy France, then I guess we should just go ahead and sink their entire navy at anchor.
Plan Ape has a response.
Also, Vichy France were the last ones that actually used the guillotine.
Huh.
I like Plan Ape's response.
I don't see one.
Grow a set is for tits. Grow a pair is for balls.
Ah, good point. Very good point.
I didn't know you.
Where'd you see that? I didn't even see that.
It's on the YouTube site.
Is it?
I'm looking and I don't see that.
Yeah, my YouTube chat must be broken.
Yeah, it's not updating fast enough.
It's fine. It's fine.
Oh, now it shows up.
That is quite funny, though.
That's pretty good.
There. Wait. Wait. Here's the picture. I'm gonna do my part. I'm gonna shut the lights off the Eiffel Tower right now. There you go.
Right meow.
Right meow. There it goes. Pew. All right. Moving on.
I'm waiting for it. It's slow on the YouTube side.
It's okay. There we go.
Oh, there it is. There it goes.
All right. Russian forces are being widely accused of targeting civilians after dozens of missiles rained down indiscriminately on Ukraine's major cities Monday, leaving many without power.
Looks at the German embassy. You don't say.
Right. Ukrainian President Zelensky filmed a video in Kyiv minutes after the missiles stopped, declaring that we are dealing with terrorists. Widespread powder and water outages were reported in Kyiv and elsewhere following the attack. Though Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko stated that the city was intentionally shutting down some supply for just repairs. Footage of Russia's attack shows civilians fleeing as missiles land all around them, with some hitting infrastructure and others striking playgrounds and parks. Missiles also struck the cities of Lviv, Kharkiv, Dnipro, and 11 other cities, with air raid sirens blaring across Ukraine for 4 straight hours. They have 2 targets: energy infrastructure and people, Zelensky says. They want to sow panic and chaos to destroy our energy system. Ukraine had been before this enemy appeared, and it will be there after it. The missile strikes came after months of relative calm in Kyiv and other major Ukrainian cities. Ukraine's forces achieved significant victories throughout all of September, pushing Russian forces well into the territories Putin claimed to have annexed. Ukrainian Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov condemned the attacks as war crimes and called on Western countries to supply more air defense systems to Ukraine. Our enemy believes that missile strikes are the effective means of intimidation. They're not. They're war crimes, Reznikov wrote to his Twitter. Civilians are dying and getting injured. Ukraine, with the support of the civilized world, must bring the missile terrorists to justice. And we will do it.
To justice.
Yeah. That's my virtue. The best response to Russian missile terror is the supply of anti-aircraft and anti-missile systems to Ukraine. Protect the skies over Ukraine. Doesn't that sound familiar? Didn't Zelensky plead to NATO like within the first week to protect the skies over Ukraine. They're still requesting that. Anyway, this will protect our cities and our people. This will protect the future of Europe. Evil must be punished, he says. Ukraine's aggression came to a head with the bombing of the Kerch Bridge, connecting Russia to Crimea this weekend. The bridge is a major thoroughfare, allowing Russian forces to transport weapons systems and supplies into Ukraine. Putin decreed the bombing as terrorism soon after the attack, and potentially contributed to Russia's escalated missile strikes on Monday. Then again, tit for tat, right? This morning, a massive high-precision strike was conducted on Ukrainian energy infrastructure, military command, and our communications, Putin said in a Monday address. In case Ukrainian terrorist attacks continue on Russian territory, our response will be tough and proportional. No, they won't. You're running out of missiles, dude. You're not fooling anybody. You're almost out of tanks. You're definitely running out of soldiers. At least willing soldiers. You're using North Korean parts now and Iranian drones. How desperate can you be? I guess I should have said sidebar. Anyway, moving on. Now we're at Tuesday, and the reason why Night Strike didn't do a show. Because he was gathering intel on this prick. Not really. Anyway.
No.
Tuesday, October 11th, day 230. Russia has armed neighbors Belarus with dozens of Iranian-made drones as the war in Ukraine escalates, and Minsk threatens to deploy their ground forces under a joint strike force with Moscow. Boy, that's really putting all your eggs into the losing team, aren't you? What an idiot. Iranian kamikaze drones, Shahed 136s, renamed Garin 2 by the Russian army, arrive in Belarus. The main Directorate of Intelligence of Ukraine's Defense Ministry said Tuesday. As of October 10th, 32 of the specified UAVs were imported into the country, and 8 more are planned to be imported by October 14th. If you knew they were being imported, why didn't you intercept and destroy them? Just a thought. Anyway, because it was in their country, right? Whatever. The shipment of drones reportedly came the same day Russia hit Ukraine with a barrage of missile fire and drone strikes, targeting the nation's electrical infrastructure and the downtown area of Kyiv. Roughly 84 missiles were levied at civilian targets across Ukraine, and according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, at least 43 of the missiles were shot down. And we saw a really cool video of that, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It is unclear how many of the drones used Monday were supplied by Iran, but according to Zelensky, he was receiving regular updates that Ukrainian forces were successfully blocking Shahed drones. They say that they want to push Ukraine back into the 18th century, but they pushed themselves back into a much older era. Into the era of savages, he said, speaking from the streets of Kyiv, to show not only the destruction of the targets, but the targets that the Russian missile fire had missed. Ukraine will not be intimidated. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko on Monday said that he had ordered troops to deploy with Russian forces near Ukraine in what he said were clear threats levied at Minsk from Kyiv. Lukashenko, an ally to Russian President Putin, claimed without providing evidence that Ukraine was preparing to launch missiles at Belarus and bolstered Minsk's support for Russia's war effort. Belarus deployed troops to its borders earlier this year and has engaged in joint military drills with Russia since the war in Ukraine began. Concerns have mounted that Lukashenko could deploy a joint force with Russia to target Kyiv, following Putin's fury over the attack on the Crimean Bridge Saturday. Belarusian Defense Minister Viktor Krenin reportedly claimed Tuesday that the Belarusian and Russian troops' deployment on the border was purely defensive. All of the activities carried out at the moment are aimed at an adequate response to actions near our borders, he says. Right. So the Germans in 1939 were just amassing troops at the Polish border because that's purely defensive. Right? Does that sound about right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because it's kind of the same thing, right? Yeah. Right up until they blow the whistle and all the tanks roll in. Something like that. Anyway. Moving on. And this is a good one. I actually skipped 3 stories regarding this same thing because I figured there was going to be a lot of overlap. So I just went straight to this one. I went straight to the jugular. There we go. Looks like the Brady Bunch, sort of. Except, who's that loser in the middle? Yeah. Leaders from the G7 on Tuesday condemned the dozens of Russian missile strikes that rained down on Ukraine this week and said that the attacks amounted to war crimes. Well, you can say it all you want. What are you going to do about it? Russia on Monday levied 84 missiles and drone strikes across Ukraine, hitting civilian populations nationwide. We condemn these attacks in the strongest possible terms and recall that indiscriminate attacks on innocent civilian populations constitute war crimes. We will hold President Putin and those responsible to account, leaders from the US, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the UK said in a joint statement. And how do you plan on doing that? Are you going to go in and arrest him? No? Shut the fuck up. Ukrainian President Zelensky joined the G7 nations in a Tuesday meeting in which Zelensky proposed a peace formula to help staunch Russia's brutal attacks. Zelensky has repeatedly asked nations like the U.S. to provide better air defense systems, and on Tuesday called on all 7 nations to assist Kyiv in finding and funding for an air shield, or find funding for an air shield. The G7 joint statement did not comment on Zelensky's requests, but instead vowed to continue supporting Ukraine as Russia's assault continues. We assured President Zelensky that we are undeterred and steadfast in our commitment to providing the support Ukraine needs. No, you're not, because he told you exactly what he wanted, and you're still not giving it to him. Anyway, to uphold its sovereignty and territorial integrity, we will continue to provide financial, humanitarian, military, diplomatic, and legal support, and will stand firmly with Ukraine as long as it takes. Russia targeted not only civilian populations Monday, but Ukraine's electric industry by striking several plants and causing power outages across the country. In an overnight address, Zelensky said that the officials were working to get the systems back up and running, but Kyiv was forced to halt exports of electricity to the European Union following strikes. It is unclear if exports have yet resumed, though they served as the latest disruption to Europe's energy supplies since the war in Ukraine began 7 months ago. We are committed to supporting Ukraine in meeting its winter preparedness needs, the leaders pledged. We deplored deliberate Russian escalatory steps, including the partial mobilization of reservists and irresponsible nuclear rhetoric, which is putting global peace and security at risk, the statement added. The international coalition also called on Belarus to stay out of Putin's war and to stop enabling Russia's aggression by allowing them to use Belarusian territory to target and strike Ukraine. No country wants peace more than Ukraine, and those people have suffered death, displacement, and countless atrocities as a result of Russian aggression, the leaders said. In solidarity with Ukraine, the G7 leaders welcomed President Zelensky's readiness for a great peace.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. Those people had the ability to end this before it even started, and they didn't. They sat back and let it happen. The whole world watched Russia mobilize with its co-conspirator of Belarus on their border for a year. They did nothing. He requested air support. He got none. He requested a no-fly zone. He got none. He asked to join NATO in an emergency vote after applying repeatedly since 2014. They didn't do it, but they allowed Sweden and Finland to join in 10 days. How much more are they going to ask him to do before they finally let him into the boys' club?
Honestly, there's nothing stopping Poland from retaking Kaliningrad if Russia's focusing everything on Ukraine.
There's nothing stopping NATO from just saying, you know what, Ukraine, you are one of us now, which means we will impose a no-fly zone.
Honestly, if Belarus invades Ukraine and uses its forces, a majority of its forces, then what's to stop, say, NATO and Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland from running forces straight into Belarus.
And considering Poland has the largest amount of tanks of the Western nations.
They have all of them.
Yeah. And
I mean numbers wise, they have
I'm
the
just
most.
saying this supposedly because Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia all share a border with Belarus. And if Belarus is going to start insert itself into this whole conflict,
you're saying they can all just jump in and smack it down.
Yeah.
Like
honestly,
like they all just smack them all at the same time and go, fucking stop.
While a majority of Belarus's mobilized forces are all attacking the Ukrainians, I would argue they don't have enough forces to protect themselves from, say, an enemy force coming in from the other side.
Right.
And I may be wrong. And I'll admit it if I'm wrong. But the fact is, it's a bad idea if Belarus starts getting into this more than just being the Ukraine and Russia, then that's going to get more people to say we really should do something other than just give people
this is a world war that nobody wants to admit it.
No, that nobody wants to admit it. But the thing is, Poland would really like Kaliningrad back. And honestly,
I'm sure they would.
Right now, there is nothing stopping them from taking it back because Russia can't focus forces on Poland right now.
No, but they would just use a low yield nuclear weapon and strike.
They could try.
With the Y.
They could try with the one eye.
I got a better question. NATO has refused to allow Ukraine in.
Mm-hmm.
They've repeatedly tried to get in. They've repeatedly requested entry. They have repeatedly been denied. They have repeatedly conceded the things that NATO demanded Ukraine do to be considered, like losing their nuclear arsenal, for instance.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
If NATO is so stuck on not allowing Ukraine in, why are they also so stuck in not kicking Russia out? Expel them. They're not a good actor of democracy right now, right?
Russia's not in NATO.
Or is it the UN?
The United Nations.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, I got that wrong then. Why hasn't the UN expelled Russia from the UN? They're a bad actor right now. They're a belligerent actor. They are an aggressor. It's like, no, you can't be in the boys' club and then go and commit genocide.
Because they're being supported by all the countries everybody else hates.
No, see, the problem is it's because the UN has no common
India,
sense.
Iran, North Korea, China.
They have no common sense. That's what it is. It's simple. If you were, what is it?
I'm going to quote the Princess Bride here. I do not think that word thinks what you think it means. What you think it means.
No, I know exactly what it means. See, the thing is you expel Russia and you threaten every country that supports Russia by expelling them too. You can say, look, you can be with us or you can leave with him. And just see how strong Russia's allies' convictions are. Because if you kick Russia out and like China and North Korea and whoever else follows him, well then the axis of evil has been clearly defined. Now you know who all your enemies are and be like, well, you're not part of us, so we can attack you now. It's that simple. See, they keep getting away with it because nobody's stopping them. It's just like bad politicians. They keep getting away with things because no one gets off their ass and calls them out for what they are and then stops them. And then punishes them so severely that no one dares try to repeat what those guys did. Because this whole system has forgotten how to win a war. I've been saying that for years. The world forgot how to win a war. Russia's capitalizing on that fact. They're like, they're not going to do shit to us. They don't even remember how to win. They just know how to sit there and argue. Anyway. We really went off on a tangent. But I mean, it's good discussion, right?
Well, we got to discuss these things sometimes. Because if we just go on and on about the news, I hate to say this, but it gets pretty boring.
No, I know. We can't read I don't want to just read the stories. That's why I have the theme of the show so we can have this discussion based off the stories. Like, the stories are either going to support the theme or help us downplay the theme or disprove the theme, right? And so far, like everything we've talked about, it supports the theme perfectly. The stories are just what lead us to the discussion. That's all it is. So good on you for actually being more proactive and not just letting me read the news.
Well,
Anyway,
I have to stop you sometime.
no, it's not that. I read the news so we can discuss the story. That's what we just did. Sometimes y'all don't want to talk about the story, and I just go on to the next story. That's all.
Well, it depends on the story.
All right, so let's try this one on for size.
All
Because
right.
we've been talking about tit for tat, and now we've been talking about the energy thing, so now we're going to continue to talk about the energy thing.
Oh boy, I can't wait.
Yeah. Scorched earth, literally. That big dark spot in the middle. A critical pipeline that transports
what that
crude...
is?
Yeah. The ones in the back are shadows, but the one in the foreground is a burn. Anyway.
It sure is.
A critical pipeline that transports crude oil from Russia to Germany was found to be leaking Wednesday, just weeks after the suspected sabotage of Nord Stream pipelines. Now, just a quick little note here. I was going to stop everything I was doing after I read that first line and put up a picture of Jeremy Clarkson going, "Oh no!"
Anyways.
Yeah. Germany reported receiving less oil than normal through the Druzhba pipeline on Wednesday, less than a day after Poland discovered the leak. Unlike the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines, the Druzhba leak is thought to be an accident, according to the Polish pipeline operator Pern, P-E-R-N. I prefer to assume it was probably an accident, Poland's top energy infrastructure official, Mateusz Berger, told Bloomberg. Yep, weird source, right?
So Matt Berger?
Mateusz Berger.
It's Matthew.
Yes, Matt Berger.
Anyway,
it's not the first case of leakage, and it surely can't be compared to the explosion on Nord Stream. Investigation of the leak will continue, nevertheless. Germany has said that the decreased output from the pipeline will not cause a crisis for the country's oil supply. Germany and European countries have faced strained energy supplies this year as Russia has limited exports in retaliation to Western economic sanctions over President Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Explosions rocked the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines at the bottom of the Baltic Sea back in September, leading several countries to open investigations. The pipelines, which are designed to transport natural gas from Russia to Europe, were not operating at the time of the blasts. 2 of the 4 leaks were discovered in Sweden's exclusive economic zone, while the other 2 were in Danish waters. Sweden discovered one hole in its Nord Stream 1 pipes and the other hole in its Nord Stream 2 pipes. Denmark experienced the same. The damage to Nord Stream 1 and 2 in international waters in the Baltic Sea is of a deep concern, NATO wrote in a statement last month. All currently available information indicates that this is the result of deliberate, reckless, and irresponsible acts of sabotage. Some of you may remember that I did a segment last week showing you the possibility of Russia's special forces sabotaging these pipelines. They have the capability. Let's see. These leaks are causing risks to shipping and substantial environmental damage. Oh God. The statement continued. We support the investigations underway to determine the origin of the damage. Accusations have flown across Europe and the world following the leaks, with Ukraine arguing Russia is to blame. Moscow dismissed the accusation as, quote, stupid. It's quite predictable and almost predictably stupid to give voice to these kinds of narratives. Predictably stupid and absurd. This came from Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov last month. This is a big problem for us because, firstly, both lines of Nord Stream 2 are filled with gas. The entire system is ready to pump gas, and the gas is very expensive. Now the gas is just bubbling off into the air. Aww. Anyway. We're going to move on to a bit of diplomacy news now.
Uh-oh.
This might actually upset some people. I don't know. I'm kind of encouraged by this, but I can see why people would be frustrated by it too.
We're always upset.
Yes, I am the Bruce Banner of this chat, aren't I? Anyway, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin on Wednesday pledged indefinite support to Kyiv through all seasons as he kicked off the 6th meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group in Belgium. Ukrainian forces have
goody.
changed the dynamics of this war, he told world leaders united under the coalition. These victories belong to the Ukrainian soldiers, but the contact group's security assistance, training, and sustainment efforts have been vital. Our resolve is to support Ukraine's defenders. Our resolve to support Ukraine's extends through all seasons, he added. Austin said the group, which includes participants from more than 50 nations, NATO, and the EU, would continue to support Ukraine in the short and long term, noting its support for Ukraine, quote, doesn't hinge on the outcome of any particular battle. The defense secretary championed Ukraine's recent advances along the front lines and claimed Russian President Vladimir Putin's increased attacks on non-military targets shows that he's, quote, lashing out. Though Russian forces have targeted civilians since the beginning of the war, and thousands of investigations relating to human rights abuses and war crimes have been opened, Putin has made a point in hitting Ukraine's electric infrastructure. Earlier this week, Russia levied roughly 85 missiles and drone strikes at civilian targets across Ukraine, hitting downtown Kyiv and causing power outages nationwide. Russia's latest assaults have only deepened the determination of the Ukrainian people in further uniting countries of goodwill from every region, Austin says. The defense secretary did not detail additional steps the U.S. and its allied nations will take to further support Ukraine, though Kyiv has renewed its calls for air defense on Tuesday. Ukrainian President Zelensky called on the G7 to help finance an air shield. Austin said that as the dynamics of the war alter, the contact group's mission will also change. President Biden last week approved the 22nd drawdown package and shipped Kyiv more HIMARS, howitzers, rounds of ammunition, and more. This contact group in a galvanized world will help support Ukraine's self-defense for the long haul, he says. We will stand together to defend the rules based on international order that strengthens our common security. As President Biden has said, we will stand by Ukraine's defenders for as long as it takes. Well, I guess. I mean, you could just put it in a no-fly zone. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
That'd speed things along to a conclusion. Just saying. Now I'm gonna make you lose your lunch, or your appetite, be it culinary or sexually, because I'm gonna show you a picture of Smeagol
Oh, good.
in human form. And I gotta tell you,
Wait, you're gonna show us a picture of Dianne Feinstein?
she's getting uglier. No, it's not Dianne Feinstein, but she is getting uglier. You'll see.
Oh boy.
Brace yourself.
Nope. I know better.
This picture. Who is that guy that worked for Trump? Banner? Does that sound right? Steve Bannon. Yeah. If you look at this picture I'm posting, and you look at the shape of her face and her eyes, she looks like Steve Bannon. Anyway, climate activist Greta Thunberg argued against taking Germany's remaining nuclear power plants offline. An apparent reversal on an energy source she has previously said she was against. I personally think it's a very bad idea to focus on coal when nuclear power is already in place, Thunberg told German public television Tuesday, according to Deutsche Welle.
Send her through school.
Yeah, shouldn't she be in school?
She should be in school, shouldn't
Like the most truant person in the world right now.
she? Mm-hmm.
The comments come.
No, she's 18 now.
Is she?
Yeah.
Whatever. How'd she
Right.
graduate if she never went to school? Anyway.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Question.
The comments come as Germany and other European countries grapple with an energy crisis amid Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine, with most of the continent cut off from Russian natural gas as they were previously dependent on for energy. The crisis has caused Germany to look towards coal as a way of making up the shortfall, something Thunberg argued was a mistake, with the country still having nuclear power plants operational. It depends. If you already have them running, I feel like it's a mistake to close them and focus on coal. Strangely enough, I agree. However, Thunberg has not always been as sympathetic for the case of nuclear energy, saying in 2019 that she is against nuclear power. Well, how quick she changes her mind. It can be a small part of a very big new carbon-free energy solution, especially in countries and areas that lack the possibility of a full-scale renewable energy supply, even though it's extremely dangerous, expensive, and time-consuming, she said at the time. Thunberg made clear that the long-term solution for the country was still to look toward new renewable energy sources, acknowledging the debate around nuclear energy as very infected. Germany's nuclear power plants have long been the source of heated debate in the country, with the German government passing a law to gradually phase out nuclear power over 20 years ago. The phase-out of the country's nuclear plants was supposed to be completed by the end of this year, but the government agreed to an extension of operations for at least 2 operational plants, its last 2, amid the energy crisis brought on by the war in Ukraine. However, the extension has only been approved for a few months in an attempt to guide the country throughout the cold winter months, though a growing movement has rallied around the idea of a lengthier extension. German Finance Minister Christian Lindner, the head of the Conservative Free Democrats, FDP party, welcomed Thunberg's apparent change of heart on social media Tuesday. I welcome the support of Fridays for Future founder Greta Thunberg for the FDP position to keep our nuclear plants on the grid. In this energy war, everything that generates electricity must be on the grid. The reasons speak for themselves, economically and physically. Sidebar. How much advice can you take from somebody who didn't finish high school because they were a truant, while riding on diesel electric trains and being a jet setter on aircraft that have no emission standards, while eating prepared meals with single-use plasticware, all the while wearing clothing and using electronics devices that could only be brought possible to her by the petroleum industry? How much does her opinion actually matter when she's that big of a hypocrite herself? I mean, if she were to wear fur and eat deer and ride a bicycle everywhere and smell like a hippie that hasn't had a bath like most French people are about not to be able to have, she'd have a little more credibility.
No, because there's petroleum used to make the bike.
She's still ugly. Anyway, demonetized. Anyway, let me get her off your screen before you really lose your lunch. Moving on.
The screen's gonna implode soon.
I know. I got rid of her. All right, so the next story, I titled it, What Hell Must Look Like. So you're going to love this picture. Here you go. That's a still shot of the moment the bridge blew up, by the way. It's a pretty good shot. You can see, like, everything shaking side to side. Skewed the camera view. Russia's Federal Security Service, the FSB, claimed on Wednesday that Ukraine's chief of intelligence was behind the attack on the Crimean Bridge over the weekend, which Moscow had dubbed a terrorist attack. Now, before I read on, I just want to remind you that 2 days ago, in the stories that I read, Russia found out the truck was registered to a residence in Russia, and they investigated that person, his house, his belongings, and the address that the truck was registered to, all of which were in Russia. Then they turn around, and there were theories that it was a Neptune missile, an exploded laden barge, and now they're saying a truck bomb that wasn't from mainland Russia. And they're saying now, no, the Ukrainians did it. Just letting you know, in 3 days, that's how many times the narrative changed on what actually happened to the bridge. Just saying.
Because the Russians don't know how they pulled it off.
Of course not. 5 Russians and 3 citizens of Ukraine and Armenia were detained Wednesday in connection with the bombing. Armenia, huh? The successor agency to the infamous KGB said, according to Russian state-owned media TASS. Ukraine has not said whether it was involved in the attack that damaged the 12-mile-long bridge prized by Russian President Vladimir Putin and opened in 2018. However, the FSB claimed the crushing blow was organized by the head of Russian or Ukrainian military intelligence, Kirillio Budanov, who could now be under the immense threat of Russian reprisal, argued one expert. The Russian federal law on countering extreme activity, which Putin approved in 2002, 2.5 years after he assumed the presidency, and updated again in 2006, authorizes targeted assassinations for extremist activity and terrorism. Former intelligence officer of the DIA, Rebecca Koffler, explained. Oh, she's explaining this. Anyway. There's no available information that Budanov's life is in immediate danger, she says, pointing out that the Ukrainian security services have successfully protected top officials like President Zelensky, for instance. But, based on the Russian doctrine of the so-called wet affairs, spilling of the blood, the risk to Budanov's life has increased. The FSB said the explosive used Saturday was camouflaged in rolls of construction polyethylene film on 22 pallets weighing 22.7 tons and was transported from Ukraine to Russia via Bulgaria, Georgia, and Armenia. Well, that's a real roundabout way of getting it there. Anyway, control over the movement of cargo along with the entire route. Oops. Sorry, I'm having a crisis. I dropped something. There we go. Stay there.
Big crisis.
Big crisis. Control over the movement of cargo along the entire route and contacts with participants in the criminal transportation scheme was carried out by an employee of the Main Intelligence Directorate of the Ministry of Defense. That is a long title. Anyway.
Are you done speaking it yet, or is the title keep going?
Main Intelligence Directorate of the Ministry of Defense. MIDMOD. Midmod?
Oh my god, that
sounds kind of cool. Midmod. Anyway. The bridge connecting occupied Crimea to mainland Russia has been vital in supplying Putin's troops in Ukraine by funneling logistical needs into southern Ukraine. The explosion damaged one section of the road bridge and temporarily stopped traffic, which has been reportedly partially restored, according to Moscow. Several fuel tankers on a train heading towards Crimea were also destroyed in the blast that killed 3. Russia responded to the explosion by firing over 85 missiles and with repeated drone strikes across Ukraine that Monday. Anyway, that's all I got for that one. That's a really good picture, that explosion, though. That reminds me of that scene in Terminator 2 when Linda Hamilton's hanging onto that fence and she gets obliterated. Yeah, that's what hell must look like.
That actually wasn't Linda Hamilton.
No?
That was her twin sister.
Oh, you're saying in the role.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fun fact, Lee Cabot in the 1983 film Christine, she was played by two twin sisters also. And they did that same thing. They were identical twins. Anyway. Moving on. Let's see. I actually have a preface to this. In a move that is very telling of a nation not very confident in their, quote, special operation, boop. Russia is preparing to evacuate senior officers in the Federal Security Service, FSB, and their families from all occupied areas of Ukraine. In areas of Ukraine, Kyiv on Wednesday claimed. According to the National Resistance Center, which is a civilian resistance office launched by the Ukrainian government following Russia's invasion, senior Russian officers in the FSB have been informed about the evacuation routes. The NRC said officials in all 5 occupied regions, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and Crimea, have been notified of evacuation plans.
What about Kharkiv?
I think it's Kharkiv is a town in one of these regions.
Okay.
Kherson, I think. The news comes following a serious blow to Moscow after the Kerch Bridge connecting Crimea to mainland Russia saw a massive explosion over the weekend that damaged the bridge and forced traffic to temporarily stop. A 22-ton bomb. Yeah, that's pretty heavy. The bridge, highly prized by Russian President Putin, served as a major thoroughfare. This part's overlap. The NRC said a large number of FSB service officers, the successor agency to the infamous KGB, are stationed in Crimea. But a following series of attacks in Crimea, reports began to surface last month showing that Russians had already begun to flee the peninsula that Russia has occupied since 2014. That doesn't sound like the behavior of people who are occupying an area where they claimed that the people who were already living there wanted them there, does it? No,
Nope.
they want to be part of Russia. Really? Then why
They
are you
totally
running
wanna
for
be
your
part of Russia.
lives?
Why did they leave? Hmm.
Western defense officials also said last month that it appeared Moscow has removed its Black Sea fleet from Sevastopol in Crimea to Novorossiysk in southern Russia due to security concerns. More like
Gee.
due to the threat of it becoming an artificial reef. Ukraine has urged its underground citizens to work to continue to overthrow Russian occupation, to, quote, take advantage of the panic among Russian leadership in occupied areas and report on their movements and activities around military facilities. Well, duh. That's a good idea, right? This photo, by the way, is a tourist resort, I think in Crimea. So that gives you an idea of how active that battle is when you've got people in bikinis and swimming trunks standing literally a couple of miles away from where a 22-ton bomb went off, and they just kind of look over going, hey, what's going on over there? Well, back to building your sandcastle, right? Anyway, moving on. Nuclear. Ooh, this is going to be a good one. Oh, I forgot to shrink this picture down, didn't I? I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
Hang on, let me see if I can fix this right quick. This picture's way too big. I gotta really scale it down. We're doing it live, by the way. God, this picture's huge. I don't recall it being this big. Oh, screw it. I'll just read you the story. Let me just delete this one because I already took it off screen and now I can't find it. A senior NATO official stated that if Russia were to conduct a nuclear strike during its war against Ukraine, it would result in an unprecedented set of consequences. The official observed that Russia was threatening the use of nuclear weapons to keep NATO and others from getting involved in the conflict. But if these threats were carried out, it would probably have the exact opposite outcome. Such a strike would almost certainly draw a physical response from allies, and potentially from NATO itself. Duh. Russia has hinted several times at the possibility that it could unleash weapons of mass destruction in its battle with Ukrainian forces if Putin believes the fate of his country is at risk. I want to remind you that our country has various means of destruction, and for separate components, and more modern than those of NATO countries. And when the territorial integrity of our country is threatened, to protect Russia and our people, we will certainly use all the means at our disposal. This came from Russian President Putin last month, actually. He said that in a public address. Speaking at a fundraiser in New York last week, President Biden addressed threatening to use a nuclear weapon. Putin was not joking when he talks about the use of tactical nuclear weapons or biological or chemical ones, Biden says. We have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis. White House officials have said that the Biden administration has communicated directly with Russian officials about what kind of response using a nuclear weapon would bring. While officials have said that they aren't going to share publicly what the U.S. response would look like, they said that it would be catastrophic.
Right.
So, does that mean that Putin basically was told, if you fire a bottle rocket, I will turn your entire capital into a glowing hellhole?
Probably.
Well, if he was given that threat, I think Putin would probably have responded publicly. So it's hard to say. Anyway, moving on. We're almost done, I think, because we're at Thursday. Sweet. October 13th, day 232. Promise, we're almost done, guys. We're going to get there. We'll try to get it to 2 hours only. Drone strike with a Y. Oof. The capital region of Ukraine was hit by Iranian-made kamikaze drones again on Thursday morning as the Russian military ramps up attacks against the country. Kyiv Oblast residents woke up to blistering air raid sirens for the 4th day in a row this week. Rescue workers were seen rushing to the sites on Thursday's strikes. The strikes reportedly hit somewhere along the perimeter of the capital city, according to Kyiv Regional Governor Alexei Kuleba. The amount of casualties is unknown, but the deputy head of the presidential office, Kirilo Tomoshenko, said on Telegram that critical infrastructure facilities in the area were impacted. Yes, I still see you, Bjorn. The southern city of Mykolaiv was also hit by Russians overnight, with shelling destroying a 5-story apartment building in the city. Mykolaiv Mayor Alexander Sienkovich said that the building's top 2 floors were completely destroyed in a single strike. The number of casualties from that attack have not been reported yet.
And that wasn't a strike with a Y.
That was not a strike with a Y. Single, S-Y-N-G-L-E, strike.
Ah,
Let's stick it in there somewhere.
come on, man.
Okay, Joe.
That's what she said.
Come on, man. Anyway.
Come on, man.
Damn. Attacks on Kyiv were a rare occurrence before the capital city was hit at least 4 times during Monday's destructive strikes, which killed at least 19 people and wounded more than 100 across the country. The attacks come as tensions between Ukraine and Russia escalate since Vladimir Putin's annexation of Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhzhia's regions. Iranian Shahed-136 drones have been increasingly used by Russia's military to destabilize Ukraine. The Ukrainian military reported that they were able to shoot down dozens of the drones and Russian missiles through air defenses this week. Western leaders have pledged to send air defense systems and weapons to Ukraine as Russia's deadly assault against the country continues. President Biden said earlier this week that Russia miscalculated significantly by invading Ukraine. I think he thought he was going to be welcomed with open arms, Biden claimed. That this was the home of Mother Russia in Kyiv. I think he completely miscalculated. It's actually not a bad quote coming from Captain Sundowner.
I believe somebody said it out. Somebody else said it. He just,
Maybe. Good speechwriter or something. Sure. What we can tell you, as I have seen and Mike has seen, that not only did they shoot down dozens of drones and Russian missiles through air defenses, they did it with man pads. They did it with shoulder-fired man pads. Think about that. Russian cruise missile. If you know it's coming, you have seconds to see it, get tone, track it, and fire and hit it before it's past your head and 10 miles behind you already. And they managed to do it. There are videos on YouTube right now. Just type in Ukrainian man pads, Russian cruise missiles. And if you hear the most ecstatic, elated soldiers screaming, "You got that son of a bitch," in Ukrainian, you know you found the video. Because his excitement is genuine. It's like, that's like when you play with an infant and it has that innocent giggly laugh, like he's enjoying everything in life right now. That guy was that excited because they shot down a cruise missile with a man pad. I mean, that's like swatting a fly with a BB gun,
Right.
My friend Chris used to be able to do that. It blew my mind. He would shoot flies out of the air with a fucking BB gun. Crazy. Anyway. Moving on. Here you go. This is a picture of the UN resolution vote. You're going to have to blow it up to full screen if you really want to see it. You can pause and look at it, in your own time. But I'm just putting it up here because it was attached to a tweet by Volodymyr Zelensky, clearly. The United Nations General Assembly overwhelmingly approved a resolution on Wednesday that recognizes the territorial integrity of Ukraine and condemned Russia for its illegal attempt to annex 4 Ukrainian regions. The resolution also called for Russia to reverse the annexations. The 193-member international body voted 143 to 5 to back Ukraine's pre-annexation borders, a decision Ukrainian President Zelensky and Biden both applauded. The protection of the territorial integrity of Ukraine is the protection of the entire international legal order, starting from the UN Charter, Zelensky said in his nightly address. He added, various potential aggressors in the world are now watching the reaction of democracies to the farce arranged by Russia with sham referendas and attempted annexations. The 5 countries that voted against the measure included Russia, Nicaragua, and Syria. Dissenters also included Belarus, which is assisting Russia in its ongoing invasion, and
You don't say.
North Korea, officially the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea.
That's not really what they are.
Right. There were 35 formal abstentions in the vote. Well, look, you look at that list right there, and now you know what nations to expel, and now you know that there's 35 nations that you need to go, do you want to be next? That's it. Simple. Iran, who is providing kamikaze drones that Russia is using in Ukraine, didn't vote at all, so they were probably an abstention. Ukraine's UN ambassador Sergei Kizlytsya called the vote amazing and a historic moment. Alexei Makiev, another Ukrainian ambassador, said that the result of the UN resolution was a clear vote of solidarity of the world with Ukraine. President Biden said that the vote demonstrated the world is more united and more determined than ever to hold Russia accountable for its violations. No, you see, you're not. You're not committing troops. You're not inflating. You're not putting a no-fly zone in. You're not pushing Russians out. You're not committed. You're just in name only. Anyway, the European ambassador Olaf Skog, yeah, called it a great success that sends a resounding message to Russia that they are and remain isolated. Ahead of the vote, U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield told the Assembly that the United Nations was initially established following World War II on an idea that never again would one country be allowed to take another's territory by force. The resolution also sends an enormously important signal to Moscow and to everyone. It does not matter if you as a nation are big or small, rich or poor, old or new. If you are a UN member state, your borders are your own and are protected by international law. They cannot be withdrawn by anyone else by force. Looking forward, Zelensky suggested peace with Russia is not possible with President Vladimir Putin at the helm. No, now one person is blocking peace, and this person is in Moscow, he said in his nightly address. Now, while we have no opportunity for diplomacy because this Russian leader believes only in terror, we need defense support. It is on the battlefield that peace is gained, he added. The General Assembly previously held a vote on March 2nd to demand an immediate Russian ceasefire, withdrawal of all of its troops, and protection for all of its civilians. It passed 141 to 5 with 35 abstentions. Later that month, on March 24th, the Assembly overwhelmingly supported a resolution blaming Russia for Ukraine's humanitarian crisis and urging an immediate ceasefire. That too passed with 140 to 5 with 38 abstentions. Ukraine's government estimates Russia has lost about 63,800 troops during its invasion, which started on February 24th. I think you'll see that that number has greatly increased since this story was written. And I realized that I screwed up the scroller.
You
Hang
did.
on.
You
I-
screwed it.
Well, no. It's day 233. I forgot to change the day on the scroller. My bad.
Aha!
It's okay. I fixed it.
Ah.
Sorry. Okay. So now I've got another one of those little uh, lead you up to the story notes here. And it says, so the question needs to be asked, because this is part of the theme of the show. Could high energy prices erode European support for Ukraine's war effort? Follow me? Like, you get the question?
No.
Okay. Could higher energy prices during this winter, where energy is short, erode Europe's support for the Ukrainian war effort? Because they're like, can't you just settle this shit so we can have our power back? That's, I think, the question.
Maybe the countries that have never been affected by the Soviet Union or Russia directly, yes. But those that have lived under the Iron Curtain and dealt with Russia up until the fall of Soviet Union, no. Because
So-
they've seen the other side, and
They've been there and done that.
So what you're saying is,
They ain't
the
going
only,
back.
the only countries who might be affected by, dwindling support would be France and England
Yeah, pretty much.
and maybe Belgium. And everyone else would just be like, no,
I would-
we had to
I-
live under that shit. We're not going to do that again.
I would say Spain and Portugal too.
Nah, because they weren't affected by the Russians. They were beaten down by the
No,
Nazis.
no,
Guernica.
They'll join the English and the French on this.
You think so?
Though I can't see England and France, agreeing to anything.
I don't
They're
think so.
not the greatest of friends either.
They're not the worst of enemies anymore, though.
No, but there's still some tension.
I still think they fucked up letting go of Boris Johnson. I don't know.
I think so too.
Like, some
Honestly,
people say that he really sucks, but I mean, like, I didn't see it. Anyway.
Oh, well, there were a lot of English that were mad that they left the European Union, and
Yeah.
honestly, the European Union didn't really do them that good. That
No,
much
it
good
cost
either.
them money.
Yep.
Anyway. So, next story. I already put the picture up. That's why I'm just kind of
All right,
pushing
all right,
things
all
along. Russia's war in Ukraine is having a profound impact across Europe as energy prices soar in an anticipated cold winter draws near. That pain is reportedly being felt hard in the Czech Republic, an Eastern European country that is particularly sensitive to Russian aggression and has been very supportive of Ukrainian resistance. Yet some observers fear the realities of confronting Russia and forcibly backing Kyiv are setting in among the population. It'll be a difficult winter ahead for centrist European governments, and it's important that Europe is able to maintain solidarity to combat the energy and cost of living crisis amid Russia's weaponization of energy. This came from Paddy Ryan, P-A-D-D-Y, Paddy Ryan, Assistant Director of European Energy Security at the Atlantic Council. Late last month, thousands took to the streets in Prague's Wenceslas Square to voice opposition to the Czech Republic's handling of the energy crisis stoked by the war in Ukraine. Angry protesters called for the resignation of Prime Minister Peter Fiala and his Western-oriented coalition government. The protests included an overlap of the far right and far left, a strong indicator of the angst mounting as winter approaches. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is central to the recent turmoil roiling Czech politics. Many of the protesters are demanding the resignation of the Prime Minister and blame the government for joining the rest of the European Union and NATO in implementing harsh economic sanctions against Russia. Protesters claim attempts by the government to alleviate the pain are inadequate. This is not the first time the government has faced stiff opposition over the growing energy crisis. In early September, Fiala's ruling coalition narrowly survived a preliminary vote of no confidence, showing that people's disaffection with the high price of electricity and natural gas will remain a potent political issue. While protesters may blame their government for the high price of energy and overall inflation, Russian President Vladimir Putin's coercive decision to cut gas supplies to Europe is a major factor in the skyrocketing prices. The Kremlin is coupling this overt energy warfare against the EU with its disinformation tactics, attempting to amplify these concerns among European electorates, where Moscow's objective is to sow division and dissent across Europe in an effort to get Western capitals to drop their support for Ukraine, especially as the Russian military continues to suffer defeats on the battlefield. This came from Benjamin Schmidt, senior fellow at the Center for European Policy Analysis. Russia's wartime decision to cut gas to Europe caused one of the worst energy crises in recent memory. The Czech Republic, as well as many other nations in Eastern Europe, rely almost exclusively on Russia for its natural gas. The EU got 39.2% of its natural gas from Russia in 2021. The Czech Republic consumes around 9.1 billion cubic meters of natural gas each year, most of which came from Russia. A complete shutdown of gas by Russia could reduce GDP by 6% in the most vulnerable EU countries, according to an estimate from the International Monetary Fund. Putin's weaponization of energy at a critical moment just before winter aims to create market uncertainty and drive up prices to poke holes in the Western alliance. EU leaders remind the public that high energy costs are a result of Putin's war of aggression in Ukraine, and exacerbated by pandemic-related supply chain issues. The move by Putin, despite the warnings, appears to have worked in some respects, as the demonstrations in the Czech Republic show. The high cost of energy is not the only issue Czech citizens have to grapple with. The influx of refugees, over 400,000 Ukrainians, have entered the Czech Republic since the war began on February 24th, adds to the frustrations felt by Czechs over their government's perceived inability to address basic life necessities. Still, despite the growing discontent within the Czech Republic and elsewhere in the transatlantic community, support for Ukraine's defense in both rhetoric and security assistance remains strong. So, I had a plan to discuss this one, pick this one apart here. Because they're worried about the energy crisis causing European nations to falter in their support of Ukraine's defense of its own country, right? And the story keeps saying that the weaponization of energy at a critical moment just before winter aims to create market uncertainty, right? This started in February. This didn't just happen, which means this whole notion that this just happened at a critical moment is bullshit. They could have stopped this in the heat of the summer if they wanted to, or the warmth of the spring, or they could have ended it when there was a 40 fucking mile convoy stuck outside of Kyiv. But did they do it? No.
No.
Did they want this war to end? No. Clearly. Because otherwise they would have ended it. And now, world governments are backed into a corner because of their ineptitude to put a stop to this quicker. Now their people in their own countries are like, what the fuck, we have no power. You could have ended this war 6 months ago, but you didn't because you were indecisive and cowardly. And now we hate you, and you're going to say that we should hate Ukraine for your mistakes. I mean, this is going to be ugly. Imagine when the first polar cold front goes into Europe. Imagine when that picture there becomes reality for all of Eastern Europe. And the power's out. And the Eiffel Tower's turned off. And they still can't turn on their heater. That's just France. That's just Czech Republic. Now imagine all of Europe like that. How much more are those people going to have to be inconvenienced before they actually lay the blame where it belongs? Moscow. One man. One man. Anyway, moving on. We have 3 stories left. Let's try to get through these quickly. Here you go. Swedish underwear model. No, I'm kidding. Russian President Vladimir Putin must not cross the very important line of using nuclear weapons of any kind in Ukraine. This came from NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, also known as Swedish underwear model. Stoltenberg made the comments following a meeting with NATO's nuclear planning group on Thursday. Both NATO and Russia are expected to move forward with pre-planned nuclear testing this month, though NATO does not plan to use live bombs. Putin has repeatedly claimed in recent weeks, that Russia would resort to nuclear weapons if the country's territory is threatened. We will not go into exactly how we will respond, but of course this will fundamentally change the nature of the conflict. It will mean that a very important line has been crossed, Stoltenberg says. Even any use of a smaller nuclear weapon will be a very serious thing, fundamentally changing the nature of war in Ukraine. And of course, that will have consequences, he added. Ukrainian President Zelensky argues that Putin is already trying to prepare Russian citizens for nuclear war. They begin to prepare their society, Zelensky says last week. That's very dangerous. They're not ready to do it, to use it. And yet, they've begun to communicate it. They don't know whether they'll use it or not use it. I think it's dangerous to even speak about it, he added. President Biden warned last week that Putin is not joking when he talks about the potential use of tactical nuclear weapons, or biological or chemical weapons, because his military is, you might say, significantly underperforming. We have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis, he added, raising eyebrows all across the country. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre later clarified that the U.S. has seen no indication that Russia is preparing to imminently use nuclear weapons. Well, because you don't know until they do it. The kind of irresponsible rhetoric we have seen is in no way for the leader of a nuclear-armed state to speak, and that's what the president was making very clear, she says. About as clear as mud.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have made it to Friday. Today, day 233. And I found a story. Yeah, and I found a story that we haven't talked about in a while, but probably should. So here's a photo.
If we must.
We must. The Kremlin-linked Wagner Group. You know, Russia's neo-Nazi paramilitary group.
Yeah, those guys.
Those guys. Has helped Russia make some of its first tactical advances in the Donbas region since July. The United Kingdom Defense Ministry said that over the last 3 days, pro-Russian forces have advanced towards the city center of Bakhmut in Donetsk, where its mercenary group remains heavily involved in the fighting. Some strategic advancements have been reportedly achieved in Luhansk by regional forces in the towns of Optin and Ivangrad. There have been very few, if any, other settlements seized by regular Russian or separatist forces since early July, Defense Minister says. The ministry said pro-Russian forces are likely looking to take Bakhmut as a preliminary win before attempting to seize the Kramatorsk-Sloviansk area, which is described as the most significant center of Donetsk that Ukraine still holds. Despite Russia's apparent gains, the ministry said its overall operational design is undermined by the Ukrainian pressure against its northern and southern flanks, and by severe shortages of munitions and manpower. The news comes as Ukrainian forces continue to make gains in its counteroffensive in the southern region of Kherson, where Moscow has urged pro-Russian citizens to flee, particularly around Kherson City. Last month, Russia attempted to lay claim over 4 Ukrainian regions, including Kherson, a vitally strategic region that Moscow has been unable to secure since launching its invasion in February despite its proximity to occupied Crimea. Moscow has apparently also offered free accommodations to Ukrainian citizens who wish to flee to Russia as Kherson City gears up to be the latest frontline city, though reports have surfaced since the onslaught of the invasion that showed forced deportations to Russia. On Thursday, Crimea was listed by Moscow as one of the region's On Thursday, Crimea was listed by Moscow as one of the regions civilians in Kherson should flee to, along with the Russian regions of Rostov, Krasnodar, and Stavropol. Sorry, I wrote those in Cyrillic, so they're kind of hard to read. However, Crimea, occupied since 2014, could be next in Ukraine's crosshairs, as Ukrainian President Zelensky has vowed not to stop his forces until all regions are restored to Kyiv. Remember, Putin says he's trying to clear out Nazism in Ukraine, sends in a neo-Nazi paramilitary unit of his own country that's led by a guy that's got a Nazi chicken tattooed on his chest and the SS rank lapels tattooed on his collarbones. That prick. Yeah. But they're taking out Nazism, remember? That's the narrative. That was the original narrative. Anyway. Final story of the night. Yay, you made it. You guys made it.
Nor.
No. Here you go. It's kind of an update to the story in the beginning. So we've come full circle. And this is a really good image of the part that collapsed into the water there. Moscow is scrambling to repair Kerch Bridge connecting the Crimean Peninsula to Russia by July, after an explosion over the weekend damaged President Vladimir Putin's prized bridge. A deadline for July 1st, 2023 was reportedly set Thursday, and construction will be managed by, oh my god, I've never seen a word that long before. You don't know, dude. Okay, I'm going to struggle with this one.
Copy and paste. Copy and paste.
I can't. Nizhnyangarstrenstroy. Wow. Let me try that again.
That's not that bad.
Nizhnyangarstrenstroy.
I've seen longer.
You want to know how many letters that is?
I know, but I've seen longer.
I have seen longer.
Especially Russian.
It's 23 letters.
I know, but I've
There's a lake in Massachusetts that's like 27.
Still. Nizhnyangarstrenstroy. Oh, it gets
And it's
easier.
in.
It gets easier the more I do it. Anyway, reportedly told Ukrainian news outlet Pravda. Kerch Bridge, which was completed in 2018, was championed by Putin following Russia's occupation of Crimea in 2014, was severely damaged Saturday after an explosion destroyed part of the bridge. A portion of the 12-mile-long bridge fell into the Kerch Strait, and traffic was temporarily halted. At least 3 people were killed in the blast, and several fuel tankers on the train transporting fuel from Russia to Crimea were destroyed. No one has claimed responsibility for the explosion, though Moscow has accused Ukraine's chief of intelligence of being behind the attack. At least 8 people have been arrested in coordination. Ukrainian President Zelensky on Friday vowed to continue accelerating Kyiv's advances in the war as his forces continue to make gains in the south. I know that you are bringing victory closer as much as you can, and we will do everything we can to speed it up, he says in his address to the nation in honor of Defenders' Day. You are the most precious thing we have, each and every one, he said, addressing those fighting in the war against Russia. Behind you, Ukrainian warrior, are millions of people who know exactly what they live for. Ukraine's forces made significant advances in the north last month, retaking the region of Kharkiv and forcing Putin's forces to retreat across Russian borders and deeper into the Donbass. Western defense officials assessed Friday that pro-Russian groups have made some tactical advance in the region for the first time since July, but noted Russia's war effort continues to be undermined by Ukrainian advances in an inability to adequately resupply its forces. Ukrainian forces have also begun to take greater advances in the southern region of Kherson, and Russian officials are concerned that Kherson City will be the latest frontline city as Kyiv looks to push across Crimea. This photo shows the beginning of construction, I guess, or cleanup, because you can see the train cars at the top, right? It's got like a heavy crane looking thing over there. If I was whoever was responsible for this attack, I would hit that bridge every single night. Now that
Giggity.
you know that there are a bunch of Russians trying to fix it, that would not only destroy the bridge further, but would it also, number one, it would discourage Russian people from even going to that bridge to try to fix it or to repair it. Sorry, to fix it or even participate in repairing it. As long as they're constantly under attack, right? Would you want to go try to fix a bridge that you don't think is going to get bombed every day? I don't think so. Like, you should blow that shit to hell every day until all 12 miles of it are in the ocean.
Maybe they're planning on it. They're just not saying anything yet.
Well, the only way you're going to
I've
stop,
actually been kind of surprised they haven't hit it before.
Mm-hmm.
right? Maybe they couldn't because of all the S-400s and all the ships in the Black Sea Fleet and, you know, that kind of thing. Like, maybe it
Well,
was too well defended.
There's not very many ships left in the Black Sea Fleet.
Correct, which is why it should be ripe for taking that bridge out. I'm just saying, man, like, if you don't want Russians in Crimea, then you need to destroy all 12 miles of that bridge and never
question
invite
is-
it to ever be there again.
The question is, do the Ukrainians have any missiles in their arsenal that they could put on their aircraft that could target the bridge?
Yes.
Will the Neptune missiles work or no?
Neptunes would work.
Because those are an anti-ship.
Neptunes would work. Harm missiles might work. Good old.
No, harms wouldn't work.
Well, I mean, you would have to have.
They're designed to home in on a
Radiation.
Radiation signal.
Yeah. So okay, so then it would have to be the AIM 120s.
Maybe a harpoon, because they do have harpoons.
AIM 120s could do it. Anything.
Possibly, yeah.
Anything you can laze the target with could do it. Like laser.
Well, the
guided
120s are not laser guided, but they're radar guided.
Well, no, I'm saying like you could use
That might work.
can use laser guided bombs.
Yeah.
Like they've got a lot of options. Or if the theory is true, just pack 22 tons worth of explosives on barges, like they did the first time, supposedly, allegedly. It's my new favorite word, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Yeah. That bridge needs to cease to exist. It should never, ever, ever exist ever again. That should be a middle finger to Russia. Like, you can tear down that whole bridge and then put one giant 100-foot statue of Ian McKellen screaming, "You shall not pass," in its place. Yeah.
You shall not pass.
I would have thought they would have gone after the rail bridge first.
Well, they're both connected, sorta? I don't know.
They're side by side, yes.
Yeah. And
the rail bridge definitely took some damage.
Yep, 7 fuel cars went up in flames. That's what the big fire was.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Ukraine, yo. Good job hitting the bridge. Finish the job. You took out one section. You've got like 250 sections left. It's a 12-mile long bridge. Come on, snap to it.
You know who you should message, right?
Jab Turkey.
No.
Admiral Kuznetsov.
No.
Grim Reaper.
Someone with cancer that likes to...
I told you I wasn't going to talk about
warm.
them.
Yeah, warm.
I told you I wasn't.
Well, I was going to say capped.
I wasn't gonna. No, I can't do that.
No,
I promised I wouldn't mention them this episode.
Oh, you mean
I
like sock?
didn't say them by name.
I know.
Yeah, sock would work.
Sock would work.
Because didn't you say there were European pilots in that group?
Matrix was, yes.
Or former pilots
Yes.
who might have contacts?
A couple of them are still active, actually, but yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just ditch
We're not
the
mentioning
bridge.
them.
It's got to go.
They might be able to pass that message along, you know what I'm saying?
That bridge has got to go. That's all I'm saying. You know what else has
Hey,
to go?
Oh, yeah.
Let's go.
Do you know who else has to go, though?
Putin.
We do. Because I'm going to play this. Because we've spent 2 hours and 10 minutes of the viewer's time. And I ran out of stories.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And
About time.
yeah. Anyway, I'd like to invite you all, if you look in the links in the description below, if you'd like to join my Discord server and come join us in the chat, not just for this show, but for just whatever, because we talk shit while we do our jobs or whatnot. Anyway, if you're new to my channel, welcome, but if you're a regular here, welcome back. Either way, check out the other playlists I do and see if my other interests might be of interest to you. I'll be recording a new Pwnery Tinkers episode tomorrow, a quite extensive one, so I guess you can look forward to that. This was the War Room. This was day 233, and we will be back in 7 days' time for day 240. So until then, Slava Ukraini.
Here I am, Slava.
And good night.
Shut up, you infringed!